Happy 2026. What a start, right? So most of the internet is dead already. We just haven't realized it fully quite yet. And in this episode, the first episode in 2026, my friend Jono Alderson, the technical SEO specialist, you need to listen even if it hurts your feelings, will argue that 90% of websites are now zombies. So they're technically online, but functionally they're dead to the AI agents and LLMs that now control a lot of the search. So if your strategy in 2026 is to publish more blog posts or tweak your meta tags, you are optimizing for something that's not there anymore. Jono argues that the threshold, the era of dragging humans to your URL, is officially over. So we discuss why AI models have developed this immune system that treats marketing fluff like a virus, why things like llms.txt are a trap and you should be focusing on some other things, and why the only way to survive 2026 is something called upstream engineering. Upstream engineering. Jono Dictionary, the terms he uses on his blog and when he talks about these things is a fascinating thing, and just listen to the guy. So this conversation might scare you, but it's a necessary wake-up call. So let's dive in. Jono, welcome to the podcast. Where is the threshold in 2026?
Where is the threshold? What a great question, and thanks for having me. I think it erodes and disappears. So let's take a step back. I think all of marketing and advertising throughout all of human history has been based on the singular concept of interrupting, disrupting, convincing, shouting loud enough and convincingly enough to drag humans across a threshold. And historically, that was a physical thing, like come into my store off the street. I sell discount t-shirts. And then very recently, it became a digital thing where we go read my advert, look at my LinkedIn nonsense, etc., etc. But this core concept is the same. It's all trying to get people to take that step across that threshold. And that's significant because before they do that, whilst they're out there in the wild world, they are impressionable, open to manipulation from competitors, will see other people's adverts and messaging, and aren't yours to control and influence. And that's scary, and it makes it very, very hard to exert influence. And then the second they cross that threshold, do whatever you want. You can influence the messaging they receive. You can shape and craft the narrative. You can influence them to take actions. The whole discipline of CRO and experimentation is based around this, right? We go, they're now ours. How do we squeeze the most value? And that's been the de facto reality forever. And now, as of tomorrow-ish, I think that's no longer the case. I think we've entered a world where machines disintermediate or intermediate, and they make that decision. And they don't allow us to access their audience. So the threshold's gone.
I thought you mentioned CRO, and the beginning of CRO for me, and a lot of people I know, was lift model, like getting familiar with the lift model. Yep. The only thing that matters out of the lift model is clarity right now. I mean, I'm not going to say nothing else absolutely doesn't matter, but those nudges you can have, like if you fabricated sense of urgency, like you need to buy now, or that is when when the entity browsing your website is not a human, it's an agent or any machine. That does not matter at all. Like that's going to be completely irrelevant. But clarity, and then clarity not just on your website but everywhere. And we'll talk about this because you have a really good analogy for this as well. So the web we're living in, you called it surfaceless web. What does that mean?
So I think the web we've had so far has been very tied to publishing web pages on websites, on domains, in neat little bundles designed to do this threshold thing, right? There is out there, which is search engines and social media, and there's in here, which is our website and our domain. And humans have broadly consumed the website through that modality since the beginning of the web. There's been experiments in different forms, different approaches, but generally speaking, we visit websites and add things to checkouts on URLs. Lovely, very cute, very neat, very much designed for addressable concepts and information that live at a place. And then you go, okay, now increasingly the primary consumers of the internet might not be humans, but might be bots and agents acting on users' behalf or on their own agendas. And then you start to ask, actually, is this modality the most sensible one? And is it even still relevant? And if I don't know, for example, ChatGPT is trained on the whole corpus of the web at some point. It doesn't really necessarily care or understand that my blog is on a subdomain and it's a separate entity, or that Christmas microsite I launched in 2013 on a separate URL is no longer relevant. Like it's not doing that human thing we do, parsing and validating all that necessarily. And then you start to ask some interesting questions, I think, around, is the smallest unit of consumption a URL? And is the most sensible way to bundle URLs websites? Maybe even not. Maybe my brand as a concept is an aggregation of statements on, sure, my website, but also Reddit, and also that subdomain from 2013, and also probably, I don't know, the footage in a YouTube video of somebody driving past a billboard that I ran in 2020. Like, all of these things in aggregate are my entity and how systems understand them. So this idea that we're kind of constrained to put text on a web page, on a website, and that being the format that we operate in, maybe not so relevant now. Who knows?
Does that sound scary because it's almost impossible to track with the tools we have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly the crutch and the lies that we've told ourselves for the last decade or so, maybe 2 decades, of we can neatly attribute impression share through to clicks, through to actions, through to revenue, and we can tie it all back again, blah, blah, blah. It's never been true. No. And it's getting less true. And yeah, I find myself regretting younger me's dismissal of old school conventional advertising metrics and measurement. Right? It turns out that column inches and salient studies and surveys might actually be the only things that we have. And actually trying to interrogate panels of people and ask them what they think and feel might be far more effective, might be the only thing we have when we don't have insight into how all of these systems and machines evaluate these inputs. But that's always been the case. That's how people make decisions, right? We've just pretended it's not because it's convenient.
It's convenient. It was always about convenience and nothing but convenience. And Google was really at the right time, right place to push Google Analytics and like make us think.
Yeah, everything is channels and the whole world operates. Never mind humans.
Yes. I had a guest on this podcast, and the analogy was, or the question was, how come Dom Draper was better at branding than we are today with all the tools we have?
Yeah, because we made ourselves stupid and lazy. Definitely.
Wait for AI to make us even more stupid and lazy, because this was without AI. But yeah, this is a very interesting concept, and a lot of people are talking about it. There's a lot of, I don't know how you feel about the term GEO expert, but there's a lot of GEO experts who never did any SEO in the past.
Yep.
And they think they cracked it. I don't quite agree. I don't think anyone has. I don't think even the people building these LLMs really have cracked how they actually work and what they will say. But the shift from a convenient way to measure what's happening on your website and with your brand online to whatever is next, and to measuring how entities are perceived is going to be very painful for several years until we find a way. And maybe ads inside LLMs are really, those breadcrumbs that tell us this has a meaning, that you're positioned for when you pay, and when you don't, you're nowhere. And maybe that's step one. You also talk about it's your blog, and by the way, everyone go to Jono's blog and read every single blog post.
Okay.
The zombie web theory is another analogy that you have there. So basically, you're saying that it's a concept where most websites are zombies. They're technically online, but functionally this is harsh because agents cannot parse their heavy JavaScript and their bloated design. And you're preaching to the choir here when you say that to me, because yes, of course, React doesn't need to exist. But what's the way out of this? If a brand has issues with a slow website, bloated slow website, what is the way out? Do they just... How important is the problem? Let's start there.
That's a great question. So I think that the technical bits of it are quite down, like this is slow and this is bloated is almost a secondary problem. It's definitely a huge challenge at the moment that if you want to continue playing today's game of drag people across the threshold, convince them, even with diminishing returns, you can still do that for a bit, but the systems, the LLMs, the agents, etc., are going to be far less tolerant of the kind of technical bloat and lack of quality control that Google has been tolerant of for the last decade or so. So everybody who's never quite got around to making their site fast enough, or is still on React and is still building single-page apps with 20 megabytes of blah, 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 blah. Yeah, those sites are going to struggle because ChatGPT, OpenAI, Microsoft, etc., aren't incentivized to rebuild the same kind of systems that Google has built to forced the way through that. So that's definitely a problem. I think the bigger existential challenge, though, is that many of these websites never truly provided distinct value. Like you think about, like I use this example a lot, but you think about every dentist on the planet, they all have the same website, and it's the same 12 pages and the same crappy blog with the same articles and top lists, etc. None of those created any value. None of them said anything of interest or anything new. And if you're an LLM or ChatGPT today, you've already extracted all of that value. You already understand the pros and cons of teeth whitening versus whatever, blah, blah, blah. Everything those sites have ever said is now essentially worthless. Like, it's just commodity. And if you were Google or OpenAI, what's your incentive to send traffic to those or to recommend them or to cite them when they're not solving useful problems? So all of the value's been extracted, and what's left is just kind of a husk that continues to act as a brochure for humans that want to interrogate it directly and maybe see URLs on billboards. But it's not a source, and it's not going to connect. And businesses, this really scares me, because I don't think many businesses have ever truly considered what unique value does our website create and provide, because businesses aren't designed to do that. They're designed to drag people across the threshold and sell to them. It's never been a function. So now we have so much of the web that just no longer has any value. Certainly not as an input to the systems that will intermediate everything. So that's a fun thought.
Content marketing at its worst.
Content marketing, like those two words don't go together.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Well, when the purpose of content is, like you say, just marketing, and it's not even marketing. That's just tricking Google into sending some love our way, and nothing.
Yeah, it's a bag of tricks.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Sure. Like the whole word content, right? So there's so little of it on the web. Like, it should mean the thing that the thing is and contains the value, like that's but it's just meant words on a page, and it's not valuable anymore. No, it never was. But whenever
there's a boss or a CEO saying we need more blog posts,
yeah, really?
Do you?
Yeah.
Why do you need more blog posts? Now, next topic is next term, and we're going through terms that you coined.
Yeah, we're just doing dictionary corner.
Machine immune system.
Yeah.
And I reread this blog post this morning. It's an idea that AI agents will objectively reject marketing as noise. And all of the damage you do to your website or to your brand by having a horrible website or horrible experiences elsewhere will stay in the system, because like immune system, it rebuilds and then it remembers what happened in the past. So tell me about, let's unpack machine immune system. Why would an LLM treat sales copy as an allergen almost?
Yeah, I love this. It scares me because it's the same flavor, the same problem. Like, most websites are not designed to be good. Most websites are designed to say, we have the best product. And it maybe turns out that they don't. Or that their product is the best, but it's twice the price of the rest. Or that their product is average, but their CEO behaves in objectionable ways. Or they used to have the best product and then, most of marketing, I think, and certainly on the web and in content marketing, is designed to be kind of distraction, right? If you don't have the best product, you say we're the cheapest. If you have the most expensive product, you say we're the best quality. And all of this is storytelling. And it's storytelling designed to influence and divert and convince humans and to find the right intersect, in the best cases, between people who aren't necessarily informed about all the options and are time scarce, etc., etc. And yeah, the best versions of this are about fit, but the reality is most of it is about manipulation. And then you go, okay, dear ChatGPT, find me the best smartwatch. And it's smart enough to have done the legwork and the research and to have evaluated everything everyone's ever said on Reddit and to have seen the billboards and to have understood blah, 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 blah. And it can cut through all of that. And it's incentivized to do a better job of understanding the actual quality and the actual fit, and to start to learn to see through all of the fuzzy marketing stuff designed to manipulate humans. You mentioned kind of false scarcity earlier. I think that's a really good example. All of the emotional manipulation, all of the tools and tricks that we've used as an industry to try and do that nudge to get people to cross the threshold, all of that is meaningless. I mean, two degrees, I think. One is meaningless because these systems will see through it. But also, if we consider how these systems work, that they're vectorizing text, that they are flattening websites, that they are trying to evaluate the inherent value of the thing rather than the messaging about it, all of that just disappears anyway in that kind of chunking process, right? They're not retaining, oh, that was a particularly nice layout, or the way that you phrased this was particularly compelling. Certainly not in...
Or the intro to that recipe took me back to Florence when they're 20 years ago. I'll give you 4 words that started all of this bullshit and are responsible for most of it. Sell me this pen. Because that story of sell me this pen...
Yep, I hate it.
Which is Jordan fucking Belfort, a criminal.
Yep.
By the way, he's the one who did it. And then you tell a story about how cool your product, cheap or whatever. No, just show me, give me the I don't know if you saw Parts of Recreation, but give me the Swanson.
Give me a breakdown of
its
its attributes.
Give me the best possible product and let me see if I want to buy it. And
Yeah.
we're entering this era now. I liked it. So if that sexy, exciting storytelling content doesn't matter in the future, what does? Does the boring thing like terms, conditions, like, do you need to focus on that, or shipping policies? Is that more relevant?
I think so. I think everyone's equally done a bad job of this because it's boring and because it's work. Because having an e-commerce store and actually doing the work to describe what is the fabric this thing's made out of and what's its dimensions and to do that at scale in a way that's meaningful and adds value, I think that's super important. If these systems are going out into the web and collecting all the data and all the evidence that they can find through all of time and logging that, storing it and learning from it, then failing to have clarity on things like what is my return policy and when was my company founded, and like all of this stuff that is should just be grounding for being reputable and trustworthy. Many organizations never get around to because it's not sell me this pen. It's not tied to the end of the transactional process.
Storytelling matters more. Not only when the company was founded, what do we stand for? Like, why do we exist?
So I love this.
Why are we a company?
Yeah.
What do we want to change in the world, and what kind of person will resonate with us as a brand?
Yes. And there's a lot of pushback on the kind of brand purpose thing. I know there's been huge amounts of do millennials really want the yada yada. Very interesting. But yeah, I think there is definitely a deeper point that being able to clearly and consistently articulate what is your mission, what is your purpose, what problems do you solve, that is going to be super important because, again, these systems are going to be acting on our behalf with a reasonable degree of understanding about what are my preferences, my past behaviors, and my expectations, etc. And they are going to try and align with that. But then again, you have the same problem. Many organizations do a terrible job at this because they've never been forced to actually articulate what differentiates us from our competitors. And the reality is probably not a lot. And the vast majority of those dentists and insurance resellers and yada yada, other than maybe hyperlocal stuff, aren't differentiated.
Hyperlocal is different. I think that you use Google Maps or whatever map tool to search for those. When you need a dentist, I'll type it in the map, not Google. But LLMs will always be like matchmakers between the customers and the brands. And you care about, environment. These brands care about environment as well. If you want to buy something, buy from them. Consider them first. I like that a lot because maybe that's how it should have been always, and not the loudest, most convoluted storyteller wins. But hey, you also talked about machines punishing incoherence. So if your website says one thing and Reddit says another thing, this was never a thing. No one cared about this until recently because your website, like you say, if I get you in a dark room, my website, I can convince you to buy anything, or I believe I can convince you to buy anything. Now it's different. Now there's no entering the room almost, or just people looking into the room.
And people forget, right? They like, oh, that I don't know, that big shoe brand that had that scandal in 2015 is now a distant memory, but not for LLMs. Like, that's still very relevant.
So Bill Cosby's not coming back because of LLMs. Is that what you're saying?
Damn it. If there's one thing that ChatGPT achieves, wow. Yes. Yeah. I think that through time thing is hugely underestimated for a bunch of reasons. One is, humans forget very quickly.
Yep.
And when I'm trying to pick a brand to buy a set of shoes from, that incoherence of them saying, oh, we're great and we're legitimate and we're eco-friendly because they were forced to be because they reacted to some scandal that everyone's forgotten about. Awkward. And then if it turns out that everyone on Reddit says, well, actually, they have this terrible practice of, I don't know, encouraging mining, blah, 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 I don't know, whatever. But then that through time as well, I think is super interesting because all of this gets encoded and remembered, which makes the cost of that incoherence and failure far higher. And if you think most businesses and startups kind of bumble along in their formative years and they make a few mistakes and the customer service isn't great and their returns policy, blah, blah, blah. All of those things, you then grow out of that if you're successful and you get good. But now all of that haunts you, right? So the cost of kind of innovating badly is far higher.
But will they be able to just pay and influence LLMs some other way?
Yeah, maybe, and maybe that's paying to influence influencers, right? If all of these things are fed and fueled by the collective corpus of everything that everyone says and doesn't say across the web, you can definitely use money to do that. And this scares me because that allows large and established and incumbent brands with deep pockets to kind of pave over the very problems that this should solve. And you can continue to be loud and just shift your budgets from, I don't know, writing blog posts to paying influencers on YouTube, much in the same way that you just kind of outsource it to an agency and hope that it goes away. Yeah, you can still do that. And then we end up in a really weird place where the market is essentially the very large brands who can buy a reputation and the very small niche brands who are artisanally useful and interesting, but can't target a big enough market to survive. And nothing in the middle.
But isn't that what we have now?
Yeah. You can have the bakery or Amazon.
There's something in the middle now, but
no value. Like
Yep.
the stuff in the middle is
Absolutely.
all just dross,
Absolutely.
right? Interesting.
And it's so scary. I don't. I like a lot of things about the future and AI changing the future, removing the hacks. Like this is what I love about it the most, because all those stupid hacks that worked don't work as well, and I love all of that. Obviously,
That's kind of like why I still like SEO despite its turbulence. Is in theory, when it's done well and it's done right,
Yes.
it's about promoting value,
and it
not
always works.
inventing
It will
stories.
work forever when it's done right. Yes,
Yeah.
I like SEO more and more and more. I spent a few years in CRO, and I think it just resonates better with me. I think more future-proof skill is SEO if you're going to compare those two, and it's not even
Nice.
close. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about the infrastructure for the future. Let's talk about AI agents. And one thing I said about AI agents at Conversion Hotel, this is the year of AI agents because search interest for AI agents is high. Not because it's real, not because it's really fully...
Yeah, with mobile.
Well, I mean, it's coming. It's coming at some point. People seem to care about it more than they cared about it before. So AI agents, MCP, what will the plumbing of the internet 2026 and beyond look like?
Love it. So I think the thing it won't look like, which we can kill dead immediately, is this idea that we have like agent versions of websites and llms.txt files and kind of separate instructions.
That
and
doesn't
markdown.
work. No one ever said that works. That's wishful thinking at best.
Yes. Yep.
At
And
this
I
point.
think it's crazy for two reasons. One is none of the systems out there will ever be incentivized to trust it, because why would I not just lie? And for the same reason that Google won't trust me to have a separate version of my pages for them. And they're always going to want to reconcile it against the original to make sure I'm not lying, which is 3 times the processing cost. It doesn't make sense. Also, it exposes all of my business critical information in a super easy way that competitors can just pass. But none of that makes sense. So I don't think we end up in a world where we maintain like a simpler 2 different versions of the system. And I even thinking further down the line, I think when you look at the journey Google's been on from scraping text to rendering and interacting with full pages in order to understand what is the experience this is trying to deliver, I think those system LLMs will need to go on that same journey. It'll take them years, but they will want to understand what does this page look like and feel like rather than just what does the vectorized text on it. For all the same reasons Google does. So I don't think we end up with a bifurcated web. MCP is quite interesting.
Another reason for that, people are bad at maintaining one version of their website.
Sure, and like seeing this as a crutch where you can go, maybe we don't need to make our website fast and accessible and actually callable. Yeah, I can see why that's tempting. But no, it's not a thing. Definitely not a thing.
That's not how it works. So the future is not that. The future is llms.txt. And also, when you ask any LLM, how should I optimize my website for agents? It always says llms.txt. That's the first thing it says. And then you check, hey, can you do some deep research to see if that actually works? Well, about that. It's a proposal. It's some people are talking. No, it's just not a thing yet. Maybe it will be, but no one has even suggested or hinted that this is a real thing.
I don't think they will. And now when you look at what's ChatGPT, OpenAI's roadmap realistically, they've got a 2-year runway before funding starts to become a really big problem. There's no way their priorities.
You're very optimistic.
Yeah. This isn't top of their to-do list.
No, absolutely not. They have the sex chat and all those things that are working on at the moment. So yes. So it's not that. Is MCP something that has a future, a real future, replacing the websites even?
Maybe, or something like it, right? The idea that as a website or as a platform or as a system or a company, I ought to have a structured, consistent way of exposing what is the content I have, what are the services I offer, what systems do I integrate into and out of, and making it easy for other systems to do that. Yeah, I think this is very much a flavor of the web that Tim Berners-Lee first imagined, albeit in a very different format. Right? It's not schema and markup and HTML, it's agents traversing functionality endpoints. Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I think there's some challenges with MCP as a format. It's not quite there yet. There are some risks with it as well. And I think there's a deeper underlying existential risk, which is the same one we've talked about, which is most websites don't have value.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
if we get to the point where we go, okay, agents can use my MCP endpoints to query all my things, and you go, what are they going to do? Yeah. I think there's an interesting journey that many brands will need to go on to think about how their websites become service systems. Like, so if I don't know, the dentist website needs to do more than just talk about teeth. It needs to have a queryable calendar. It needs to have structured pricing data. It needs to let me ask questions directly to a dentist, blah, blah, whatever. Like, and then you start to go, okay, my website, the human interface layer is just colors and pictures and text, but there is a much more arguably important layer, which is all these endpoints.
That dentists leave off of their websites for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So a calendar maybe, but pricing, it's never there. Talking to
because they want to drag them across the threshold first, right?
Yes,
This
exactly,
still the assumption of like fill out the lead gen form and then we'll phone you back. That is so dead.
We'll send you the PDF.
yeah. Well, this kills PDFs, right? That's exciting.
This kills
no more
lead
gated
gen
white
PDF.
paper.
This completely kills lead gen PDFs.
Great, good.
That's a good point. Unless the agent is going to ingest and explain it to
maybe.
you, and then it doesn't make sense.
Maybe that finally kills Salesforce and HubSpot as the kind of de facto CRMs of choice, because they're all built on the assumption that I want to do lead gen white papers.
That would be an interesting future. I'm gonna say. I'm not going to say it's better or worse, but that would be an interesting future, and I'm leaning
definitely
towards one of those two, better or worse. MCP, I agree with you. This is nowhere near, even though Google has now jumped on it and enabled it for its services like 10 days ago, 7 days ago. At this stage, MCP is 1 year old? Something crazy. HTTP, when it was 1 year old, made less sense than MCP does at one.
Yeah,
I'll just say that. So it has more of a future than people realize, because what we have right now absolutely made no sense when it was started. It was just, this is a book, put it on the screen, and that's why we have websites.
Absolutely.
If history plays out 10 more times, I guarantee you, like 2 or 3 times we get into this HTTP page-based internet kind of thing. And 8 times we find a better way.
Yeah, I agree completely. There's so many weird things about it, like the fact that it's inherently vertical rather than horizontal, the fact that single concept live on one URL and that we don't scroll side. Who knows? Like,
design of the homepage that looks like a magazine homepage, front page.
I think a lot of that is Google's influence and like their imprinting of their version of the web, and like that indirectly killed Flash, for example, which might have been a different. Yeah, there's different histories. Definitely have very different webs.
Absolutely. So let's talk about security of those things, because as everyone says, the S in MCP stands for security.
Yes, silent. Yeah, absolutely.
We don't have it. So do you think who will be responsible for security with these systems?
Yeah, no one, right? For the same reasons that no one's responsible for performance or accessibility or SEO. And I think certainly, so I play a lot in the WordPress ecosystem, and there's MCP stuff coming into WordPress core and all the plugins are jumping on it. And then I think the number of websites I see where somebody has a plugin that allows them to do invoicing and they've forgotten to go into the config and said, please make the invoice pages private. And now you go, okay, not just are they currently discoverable, but now they're going to be actively promoted. And you have systems saying, come look at my stuff. So yeah, people are not prepared for locking down their current stuff, never mind their next generation.
Oh, because when WordPress enables MCP by default, and I'm guessing they will at some point. Maybe it's going to be an opt-in for the first few months, years. But all those should have been private pages become not exposed, but offered.
Yep. And it's not just that. It's nobody has ever really meaningfully configured, should my RSS feeds be indexable? And why is this login, why does this empty page exist? Right? Nobody is doing basic housekeeping at a URL by URL level currently.
Right.
And that causes crawling indexing security problems at an insane scale. And now we go, okay, we're going to flip that paradigm and start pushing all of this into the night. That's huge.
It's going to be so bad. another next term, upstream engineering. Let's talk about that, because I'm a website optimizer, have been one since 2009. I've been building and optimizing. Yeah, I've spent time in WordPress as well. Not as much as you have, but also websites is what I have always done. For you as well. It's mostly about what, I mean, technical SEO, CRO. It's mostly about websites. So you talked about the optimization efforts shifting from optimizing the page to optimizing the graph and optimizing, just moving it upstream, basically. I mean, that's the best way to describe it, I guess. How does it work for someone who for not some, for thousands and thousands of people who are building and optimizing websites?
Yep.
What does this mean?
Yeah, this is going to be super difficult because it's going to require people to step out of the boxes that have been drawn around. Like, if your job is currently to optimize or market a website, you're going to see diminishing returns imminently because you've got fewer traffic, there's less going around, systems aren't recommending you, etc., etc. And it's at some point your role is going to have to shift, or somebody else's role, to go, if we want to continue to sell our widgets, we need to actively manage our reputation on, I don't know, Quora. And we need to actively consider which journalists we wine and dine in order to influence whether they write about us in the future. We need to go and tidy up that 2013 Christmas subdomain that nobody's thought about in years. We need to sort out blah, 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 blah. And this list is going to be very, very long, and it's going to extend to the entire web through all of time, and managing that and everything that everyone says. We think that we need to run billboards to increase salience. Like, none of these are our jobs today. They're different. At best, they're different people's jobs and different teams with different budgets. At worst, they're nobody's jobs. I think starting to have those difficult conversations now is going to be critical, because as brands start to move on this, the landscape will change very, very quickly. So first mover advantage will definitely be a thing. So yeah, being brave enough to say, waiting to try and manipulate people once they've crossed the threshold is too late. We need to instead try and influence how the machine perceives us. And that's not prompt tracking, which is what everyone is doing at the moment. Like, when somebody types this thing into ChatGPT, do we show up? Sure. Yeah. And there is a place for that, but it's far smaller than I think everyone is considering.
That's the most obvious thing to do today. And
Yes.
that's why people are going that way. And I'm not blaming them.
Yeah, it's copy
There's
paste the current
value in
modality
that.
of
Yes,
rank tracking into a new thing. It doesn't really fit, but it's better than nothing.
I like what
Yeah,
you
I
said. I don't know if K-pop has Demon Hunters have reached your household, but here it's a big thing.
Yep,
Just
huge.
imagine, instead of spending millions of dollars on Google Ads for your soda brand, if you just were able to place that soda and the soda pop is your brand,
Yes.
you never need to spend any more money on ads.
And now what we're talking about is advertising and marketing, which is what we should have been talking about all along.
We should have been talking all along, exactly. So
and it's still digital, right? You're still trying to do it in that ecosystem in order to affect how things consumer perceive and the blah, 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 blah. But yes, but we've constrained ourselves so much. I get very irritated at the SEO ecosystem for this, because we have spent 20 years convincing the C-suite that the role of SEO is to tweak meta tags and get links and publish blog posts. And we've defined that, right? We could just as equally have said our job is to influence how people perceive the brand.
absolutely. I don't know. It's going to be a very painful change for maybe if you're working with a website, talking to the audience now, block your website in the browser 2 days a week. And force yourself to
do
look
other
out
stuff.
there. Yeah, to do
I
other
love
things.
that. That's
so maybe
nice.
that's a start. Maybe that's like a therapy session. We're not looking at our website on Fridays. We're doing other things. No one is allowed to touch it.
And it's not just the kind of reactive reputation management that we've looked at, like what are people saying about us, but it's also who's not talking about us. Exactly. And I don't know, we don't sell in Germany, but that forum where somebody asks something about one of our competitors is now a weight against us. So maybe we should have a reputation, but like, you've got to be on all of it, and nobody is.
It will happen. And like you said, first mover advantage is going to be massive.
Yeah.
I
and
mean,
brands
like
will fail. Brands that don't move at all will just fail because they won't be serviced.
That's sad, but it's true. Yeah. Let's talk about timelines. I love to talk about timelines. I love to talk about sliding door moments. I think this is a sliding door moment for the internet, and things will. There are many ways this can play out. I want to ask you about the best and worst possible scenario for where we are, maybe to 5 years in the future.
Yikes!
Yes, exactly.
So I think the worst case is that kind of unpleasant bifurcation of the market where only unsustainable niche businesses or giants survive. And I think that's not unrealistic because it extrapolates quite neatly from where we are today. I'm nervous about also nobody seems to be able to answer how we incentivize publishing new value. All of these systems are based on and trained on the stuff that was written yesterday, and in the process they have completely eroded anybody's incentive to do original research or journalism or to go out and blah, 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 all of these things. So not only do we end up with this hole in the market, but the ingestion of new content and data and information stops, and nobody is incentivized or able to go out. I'm going to start a newspaper. I'm going to go and find out what's actually happening. So there's a real challenge with democracy and capitalism that sits around that, which is scary. And that could happen imminently, right? That's already happening. The collapse of journalism is well documented, and a lot of it is because these models are changing. No one has an answer. Google don't have an answer. Microsoft don't have an answer. OpenAI don't. And everyone's kind of waiting for somebody to solve this. And it's not ads in ChatGPT. It's not microtransactions. It's not bribing publishers to kill. None of these are good solutions. So that's scary.
I think independent research work and independent journalism does have a future. If you look at people, and of course this is a big name, but people like Ed Zitron, who has built a huge following, and he's an investigative journalist. That's what he does. He does pretty well, but you need to have a following that you deserve, not just some legacy publishing business behind you. So, correction is what we should call this.
Yeah, I agree. And and there's definitely a space for that kind of independently funded, crowdsourced kind of space, and that works with art and media as well. But I wonder if that's enough, and I wonder how you get to that scale of following in this new web.
Yep.
And that could all collapse as imminently as like the next few years. There's a cascade effect where publishers fail and Google's inventory is now stale and ChatGPT starts recommending bad things and the internet just goes awful. And there's no way out of that. That's scary.
That is the worst possible timeline. And I agree. This is horrible because it's collapsed. The models will also collapse. The future models of LLMs will be worse and worse and worse. And we're looking at Wall-E 700 years from now. And just in 10 years, basically. What is the best possible timeline from here?
The best version, I think, is we accidentally get a far better web and far better business.
I don't like that. Accidentally, if the best possible timeline is an accident.
It's an accident. Oops.
We're screwed.
Yeah. No, you mentioned this. You said, what did you say? I've already forgotten. Oh, you talked about like essentially tricks and hacks no longer working. Yeah. I think that's the good timeline, that we are forced to invest in value and meaning and differentiation, because doing anything less won't work, right? So suddenly all of these marketers who are writing blog posts might be forced to instead say, we should take all that research and we should improve our call center customer service script. We should look at the quality of the cardboard we use in our packaging. We should consider our eco policies, blah, blah. And there's a vast realignment of resource and focus and activity focused on saying, how do we be the best brand or the best product or the best solution for whatever problem for whatever audience? And people do the hard work of that thinking and that doing instead, and the world becomes a far better place.
The problem with that is it's too much work.
Yeah, it's hugely difficult. But now
it should have been like that always. I know, but now from the position of comfort where people just think I can ChatGPT could do it for me in 5 minutes. People think it can, but that is a lot of work. Also, you said accident. This is an accidental thing that might happen to us, and then everything is fine. I think we're going towards the worst possible timeline based on everything we talked about today, and I think we're running towards the worst possible timeline, and then things will correct. I don't know how, but the internet is about to get significantly worse. This is my opinion. I'm not putting words in your mouth. Significantly worse than it is today. Significantly less trustworthy. The quality of content. Look at the slop. Look at Sora and all that bullshit.
Yep. Infinite amounts of just garbage. Yep.
Yes. The signal to noise ratio is going to get. It's already beyond terrible. It's going to get impossible to keep up with. And one of my resolutions for 2026, I'm not going to pay attention to any noise. Like I'm just doing my thing. I picked my thing for 2026. I'm only working on that. I don't care about anything else. I don't want to hear about ChatGPT 5.3, 5.4. I don't. It doesn't matter. That's the whole thing.
Yep.
None of this matters. I think
Yep.
this is all bullshit they're pouring on us and expect us to react. No one cares about a new iPhone these days. Why would I care about 5.3 or
Absolutely.
5.4? Or I mean,
Yep.
WordPress releases. Sure, for people involved, for people working, big deal. Yes, you're a core contributor. Absolutely. Respect to them.
But no one's setting off fireworks in their gardens.
It doesn't matter. It does.
Yeah.
Big picture. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Final question for people in website optimization space, CRO, technical SEO, and any of that. One piece of advice to stop them from becoming obsolete in 2026.
Oh, I hate to say this because it really goes against the grain of everything I've ever believed. But yeah, you've already said go turn off the website, or at least step away and go look at everything else and think about reputation and salience and column issues and surveying and talk to real humans. Do the actual market stuff, and that is super alien and it's super difficult. And I as a tech SEO nerd, I find that is super intimidating. But that's the thing that's going to matter. The role and impact of your words on your URLs definitely continues to diminish.
There's life outside of the browser. That's the final message.
That's the t-shirt. I love it.
Jono, thank you so much. What is the best way for people to connect with you?
I think probably LinkedIn nowadays, or just directly on my website at jonoalderson.com.
Perfect. To everyone, we wish you a happy 2026. This will air in 2026.
Good luck.
And please consider rating, reviewing, and sharing this episode with a friend. And I will talk to you next week.
See you later.